And it is Denver Sports Tonight on this Friday night in the Mile High City. He's Marchello Romano. I'm Will Peterson. Roll with you for the next hour. And as usual, we've got news to discuss, news that has come down late this afternoon, some Friday news dumps, and they're all kind of the good, Chello. So we like good Friday news dumps because generally Friday news dumps are bad news. But we've got good
it's
news.
Office space, right?
Yeah.
We find it's better to fire people on a Friday.
Yeah, less chance of an incident.
Yeah, yes.
Yeah, I've been fired once in my life, and I got fired on a Friday. That checks out. Walked around the corner, and there was the boss, and there was HR. Oh, okay. Can you guys
Put
just
two and two together?
Yeah, can you just let me go pack up? I don't need to sit through this. So yeah, been there, done that. Didn't make a scene. All right, so let's start. We've got Jokic and Embiid. We'll get to that in just a few minutes because we got some big news there. Big showdown tomorrow at Ball Arena. But let's start with the Avs. They have signed Zach Parise in the last half hour. This is a cat, Chello, has played 18 years in the NHL, has 429 goals, 450 assists, played 82 games with the Islanders each of the last 2 years, and is 39 years old. A lot to digest on Zach Parise, who, as fans will remember, wore a Minnesota Wild sweater for a long time.
Oh, when you say the name, that's what comes to mind. He was an Av killer for a little while, and just one of those guys that whenever they went up against one another, he was kind of like Drury-esque to me. Like he would always be the guy that would, find the back of the net when they needed it most, and it was always against the Avalanche. It felt like so. Yeah, he's older, but this dude's no slouch. Well, I mean, this is I think a quality addition, a veteran like this who has postseason experience, who's been in the league for almost 2 decades now. I mean, I like the move.
So let's say this. Left winger, played 82 games each of the last 2 years, 15 goals and 20 assists in 21-22, 21 goals and 13 assists in 22-23. So he's a guy who can find the back of the net, projects in a perfect world on the third line, but I heard Zach and Phil talking about this, and I thought it was a good point. It feels a little Valeri Nichushkin insurance policy that if you had to put him on your second line in the playoffs, you would feel comfortable doing that.
Oh, easily. I think so. I mean, and hockey's one of those games, it's kind of like baseball to me. Once you learn how to play, you can kind of be put in anywhere. It doesn't seem like, it's not like the NBA where it's going to give you have to take, a month and a half, 2 months to get familiar with your surroundings, with your new teammates. I think he's a guy that you can insert right away, and he'll make a difference.
But does it feel to you like this is a hedge for Nichushkin? Because if you missed it, he's in the player assistance program. This is the same player that missed 5 games in the playoffs last year after disappearing in mysterious circumstances in Seattle. Said at the start of training camp he didn't want to talk about what happened, and now he goes to the program, which is essentially a version of rehab, and in a statement from Nichushkin says he wants to get help once and for all. We applaud that. We wish him the best, but is this also the Avs front office saying, hey, you've burned us twice now. We've got to add some veteran insurance before the postseason?
If it's a hedge, it's only a percentage of it. Because while I do like the player, he's not what he was back in 2012. And if you're trying to say, hey, in case Val doesn't come back, then that's all right. We got Parise. I don't think he's that level, but I think for short stints, he can be that guy for you. I think you still, if that's your logic behind it, that they're trying to find something in case that player doesn't get back in time, there's another move that's going to be made.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you. I just think it's maybe even more of a Band-Aid because Girard was in the program for a month. We have no idea how long Nichushkin will be in it. You play tonight against the Kings. There's no way Parise's playing in the next 90 minutes after getting signed. Then you go into the All-Star break. So he's going to have 10 days to get acclimated before he finally suits up in the burgundy and blue. And again, I just marvel at the fact that he's 39 years old. He made his NHL debut in 2005, and he's played in 1,224 career games. I mean, this dude is durable, Chello.
Well, and you're saying that, and you just said it, the last 2 seasons, how many games has he played?
82, both years.
And how many games are in an NHL season?
82.
There you go.
I had to think about I wanted to say 81, and I was like,
39,
right.
and to still be doing that, I mean, he's got something left in the tank. A good addition. I don't think they're done, though.
He was on those Wild teams, or that Wild team that beat the Avs in 7, that Patrick Waugh coached.
And he was the spearhead of it.
won Jack Adams Award, which is NHL Coach of the Year in his first season, then didn't make the playoffs the next year, didn't make the playoffs the year after that, and then bizarrely quit. We all remember that in the summer of 2016.
Yep.
It led to Jared Bednar, which was great. Bednar's been the coach ever since, won a cup, has a ring, but the only appearance Patrick Waugh had in the playoffs as the head coach of the Avs, Zach Parise helped spoiled. That's kind of full circle.
Yeah, and he was with the Islanders, right, leading up to this?
Yes, but he hasn't played this year.
Yeah.
That's the thing. So this is almost like, let's bring it back to the NFL. This is almost like when it's week 9 and all of a sudden Adam Schefter drops a bomb that, hey, some veteran who didn't go through camp, didn't go through the first 8 weeks is signing with a contender. That's kind of what the equivalent of this is. Parise is going to be fresher because he hasn't played in the first 50 games of the season, and he's loading up to try to win a cup, 30 regular season games, and then, hopefully 20 to 25 playoff games.
Well, listen, man, there's nothing that I'm going to say that's going to be like, oh, I hate this move. It was ridiculous. I get the logic behind it. I think it's a smart move. I don't know that it's going to pan out exactly how we think it's going to. We'll have to wait and see on that. But all signs point to good job, thumbs up.
And all I know is that Nathan McKinnon and Mikko Rantanen and Kel McCarr elevate all boats. So whatever line he ends up on, he's going to be like Jonathan Drouin this year. None of us had heard of Jonathan Drouin. I mean, he was a former top 5 pick, but he had done nothing in this league. And then it's like, oh, well, he played with McKinnon at the Halifax Mooseheads. Let's bring him in. And now all of a sudden he's reinvigorated in the important part of the team. It's like winning the lottery if you're a veteran who looks like you may not get that call to skate ever again, and then the Avs call.
Who they got tonight?
They got the LA Kings down at Ball Arena. Folks probably headed down there right now. Puck drops in about an hour or so, and then they'll be off for the All-Star break, other than obviously McKinnon, Makar, and Georgie going to the All-Star game in Toronto. But I saw a stat the other day, Chello, they'll end up playing 2 games in 17 days, which it's like if you're an Avs fan, you kind of first go, ooh, I don't like that. And then you go, 2 games in 17 days? That's a lot of time off their skates. That's a nice mid-season break for these guys.
Oh, big time. You remember back when the Avalanche, when we're kind of at their height, and Pierre Lacroix was making moves year in and year out, and they were always making cup runs. And they finally, I forget what year it was. It may have been the year that Patty gave up 7 goals against the Red Wings, but they finally just ran out of juice. For teams like this that have played that much hockey over the past, 2.5 years, to be able to get a break like this at this point of the season, when you're heading into the stretch run, is huge.
Nathan and Cale will have a lot of fun in Toronto. There's a part of me that wishes Nathan and Cale could go sit on a beach. It's that weird dilemma of when your guy gets selected at the All-Star game, it's great, but also they're the only guys, your best players, that don't get the time off.
Yeah, well, we don't want him to go Tony Romo either.
No, hasn't Nathan earned a little Cabo? I told you last night he finally smiled. You can smile over a pina colada. All right, let's talk about the Nuggets news that has come out in the last couple hours as well. Chello, it appears Joel Embiid will actually play in Denver for the first time, get this, since November of 2019. Well more than 4 years since he's played at what used to be called Pepsi Center, now Ball Arena. He's played Jokic 4 times in Philly since. Never here. Likes to play on his own turf. Ramona Shelburne reporting he is not going to be listed on the injury report for Saturday's showdown in Denver. Another footnote here before I get your thoughts. Looks like Jokic dodged a bullet. Got his eye poked last night. Pretty dirty. Dante DiVincenzo came back in, scored 31 points. Nuggets listing him as probable. Looks like Jokic Embiid in Denver is going to happen for the first time since 2019.
And I can't wait. I mean, I guess we were talking off air, and you're like, you'll believe it when you see it. And part of me, I'm excited to see the matchup, but then there's also that little sliver of what could happen between now and then tip at 3:30 tomorrow afternoon for him to miss that game, or I don't know, maybe he doesn't want to play. Like, listen, I think if he wants to be known as that guy, and he said it after the matchup a couple weeks ago, right?
He said, see you in 2 weeks.
Well, not only that, but I think the following game when he put up, maybe it was the other night when he put up 70.
Yeah, gosh.
He said that's what he likes, those accolades. He wants to be known as the best player in the world. He wants to be the MVP. And that's what propels him. If he wants to be that guy, he has to play in this game.
He does, but you're right. We were talking about it because as Zach was headed out and I was headed in, he was joking, hey, we were going to bet on this and we never settled on what the bet was. That's not my fault. if you want to bet me, you know my number. No, I'm kidding. I could have come up with something too. I was pretty confident he wouldn't play. But long story short, he says he wants to play. But he also told reporters the other night that his knee hurt after their last game. So he's not going to be on the...
I didn't hear that part.
He's not going to be on the injury report. But let's be honest, Chello. Until, I don't know if you're going to the game tomorrow, but I know a lot of people listening are. Until you're in your seat at 3:20 and you see him going through the layup line, I'm still waiting for Woj to tweet at 2:12 tomorrow. Joel Embiid's knee flared up. He's now questionable. He hasn't played here in so many years that it's become almost... part of it is, he's dodging Jokic, and then part of it's he's actually dodging Jokic. He doesn't want to play Jokic unless it's in the friendly confines of Philadelphia.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess I keep thinking about it, and I don't know how he doesn't play. I mean, I get what you're saying, but as far as and there's different rules this year as far as, load management and whatnot, he's got to play. I mean, to be honest with you, if you, I want to know, I'm going to get your thoughts on how big of a game this is for the Nuggets and for the Sixers as we go into it. But personally, for Embiid, I mean, you could basically put yourself maybe without any question that you are the MVP if you go out and dominate the way you did a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, I mean, Jokic still had 25 and 19 that night. Because as I said, it was Embiid's Super Bowl. It was a Tuesday night in Philadelphia for Jokic. I mean, Embiid cares about these games.
So whose Super Bowl is it now?
Embiid's.
Whose game? Who's it more important to tomorrow?
You're telling me whose head's hitting the pillow tonight?
I'm talking team, not just individual either.
Well, there's two different answers. Whose head is hitting the pillow, not able to sleep? It's Joel Embiid. He's at a hotel in downtown Denver going, oh my gosh, this is my Super Bowl tomorrow. I got to beat Jokic. And Jokic is going to bed thinking... I wish I was on the back of a horse in Serbia right now. Who do I play again tomorrow? Oh, it's Philly. Okay. I'm simplifying it, but you know what I mean. This stuff doesn't get in Nikola's head like it does in Joel's head. Now, from a basketball standpoint, Philly's a potential NBA final opponent. Your records are nearly identical. We saw how important home court advantage was last year. You only see these guys twice a season. Yeah, Denver needs to get this game, particularly after what happened last night in New York. I'm not panicked by any stretch about what happened against the Knicks. You could kind of see that coming 11 nights on the road, night out before in New York. But just to sort of get back on track and make sure that narrative doesn't get too out of control, I think it's an important game for the Nuggets.
I think it's huge.
Huge?
Yes.
Okay, let's hear why.
Well, first of all, I think it's huge just individually for Nikola Jokic. And I know that you probably downplay it, and I agree with you that he probably doesn't put as much of an emphasis on it as maybe a player like Joel Embiid would. But after what happened a couple weeks ago, and although they played well, I mean, it was just the final, 7 minutes of that game that the Nuggets kind of fell apart.
Yeah, it was tied when they both checked back in.
No one was playing defense for a majority of the game. And then the Nuggets just had a bad 7 minutes. If you just look at that as a competitor, Will, and say, hey, he got the best of me there. We didn't finish how we could have. This means, and we're at home, and we're the defending champs. I mean, this is it's a statement game for me, especially after what happened last night.
Well, and it's a game of, I don't want to watch a national show or listen to a national show if Embiid comes in here tomorrow, puts up 50, 15, and 8, and the Sixers beat the Nuggets. Because then what's it going to be? Embiid's the slam dunk MVP. Embiid's the best player in the world. And fair or not, Jokic will just get disrespected and slandered, and I don't want to listen to that as a fan. You see what I'm saying on that? To your point.
Well, I can already see the graphics.
Right.
What has he done head-to-head against him the last 4 or 5 times they played? That's it. That's going to be the narrative and the talking points after the game, no matter who wins.
So I think it's more than one win or one loss for me. I outlined my reasons why I want them to win, but I'll agree you used the word huge, and I kind of balked at it. It's actually huge from a narrative standpoint. I will give you that. From just the perception of Jokic around the league, the perception of him in this year's MVP race, he needs to not only win tomorrow, he probably needs to have a better game than Joel Embiid does tomorrow.
Agreed.
Yeah.
And not only him. I mean, I think Jamal's got to have a game, and MPJ's got to show up.
Which I think they will. I think those guys, again, were tired. They got to sleep in their own beds last night, albeit very late. I'm sure they got in 2, 3, 4 in the morning from New York.
Yeah.
Malone gave him the day off today. I'm sure he told him to do absolutely nothing. It was probably a 12-hour catch-up on your favorite show day, which I'm cool with. And then they got a 3:30 game tomorrow. The arena's going to be buzzing. That's an interesting start time because I don't like day games in hoops when it's like 1 o'clock. It feels a little sleepy to me. Feels too early.
Yeah.
Night games always have the juice. But there's something about that mid-afternoon game. You know that arena will fill up early, and it'll be electric by the time the ball tips off.
No, I know if you had tickets to this game going into it, especially with kind of what happened to Philly in the offseason, not knowing what they'd be, but they're as formidable as anyone in the Eastern Conference. So that's the way I'm looking at it, is that it's a statement game, an opportunity for the Nuggets not only to bounce back from that lackluster performance last night, which nobody's really harping on them for, at the end of a long road trip over on the East Coast. They've never had great success on things like, especially in the final game of it. But to come home against, like you said, a potential finals preview, and I think everyone is, if you're a defending champ and you're a Nuggets fan, you want to see them not only kind of win, but make a statement in doing so.
I mean, but here's you're making sense, but here's the difference between Jokic and Embiid. Embiid says he likes scoring 70, and Embiid's a stat patter. And if you watch that game, he was chasing a big number. Here's what I want Nikola Jokic's stat line to be tomorrow. 22, 19, and 16. Like, that would be such a vintage Jokic game, right?
Yeah.
Like, 22 points, 19 boards, and oh, by the way, he threw 16 dimes. Jamal Murray hit a bunch of threes. MPJ hit threes. KCP made shots. Aaron Gordon had sick dunks. And the whole league, when the Nuggets walk off 130 to 112 winners, goes, oh, that's why Nikola Jokic is the best player in the world, because out of their 130 points, he was a factor on 70 of them.
Agreed. But even if that were to happen, the graphic will go up, and it'll be Embiid and Jokic.
I know, but I said 22, 19, and 16.
No. I totally agree with you. I mean, his line would be phenomenal, but if he outscores him by, like, say Jokic has that line.
And Embiid scores 40?
Yeah,
50?
Embiid's got like 42, 10, and 3, 4, whatever. That's going to be the line. They're going to put, it's coming. On the 4-letter, it'll show up, and it's not Nuggets versus Sixers at that point. It'll be Embiid versus Jokic, and then that'll be followed up with a graphic on plus or minus for the MVP.
Well, that's
what it was before the game,
right,
and what it is after the game.
That's what I was going to ask you is in terms of the MVP odds, and they fluctuate all the time. NBA.com came out with their NBA MVP ladder today. Jokic was 2, Embiid was 1, 7th straight week. We've had that combo. 9th straight week, they've been 1-2 overall. It flipped a couple months ago from Jokic to Embiid. Like, I don't want to make dramatic statements that on January 27th, the MVP is going to be decided, because that's not the case.
No.
But the MVP is going to be influenced tomorrow, Chello, in probably a pretty significant way.
Big time. MVP is fickle. I mean, go back a month ago, and I'll take it to another sport in the NFL, when the Ravens went to San Francisco to take on the Niners on Christmas night.
Okay.
Remember, it was built as the two top front runners for the MVP in Brock Purdy versus Lamar Jackson, right?
Yeah, and Christian McCaffrey kind of in that conversation.
Yeah, but it was the quarterbacks.
It was the QBs.
What happened after that game? Brock Purdy, since that point, has been nothing but questioned, and that's a professional sport. And we always say it doesn't rely heavily on one game. I don't know about that. Look at what the odds did 2 weeks ago when the Nuggets were in Philadelphia taking on the Sixers. That's when you saw a huge swing in it, because it was a head-to-head thing. And I agree with you. It's not won on January 27th, but it does mean something. It means something big, not only for these two individuals, but especially for these two teams.
Well, this was a good little session that you and I just had, because you used the word huge about 10 minutes ago, and I said, huge.
Huge.
And you kind of talked me into it. So, I mean, I was going to be tuned in regardless. I get it. But I think I'm more talked into it because I want Jokic to win the MVP because he got robbed last year.
Yeah.
And I also want the narrative to not be nauseating. And maybe that's just me, and maybe people would tell me, hey, you're thin-skinned, you should be wired a different way. But I'm sorry. When Perkins is yelling about it, and Stephen A. is yelling about it, and all those guys with these massive platforms are yelling about it, I pay attention. And I think whether the average sports fan wants to admit it or not, they do too.
Let me ask you something. You say you want him to win the MVP. One because he was robbed of it last year, because there was a concerted effort from people that have those platforms to kind of change the narrative, correct?
I mean, we can use his name. Kendrick Perkins flat out changed the narrative.
Yes.
He did.
But if you want him to win, does he need to change how he approaches these final 2.5 months of the regular season going into the postseason?
No, because the voters have smartened up. And if he puts up 22, 19, and 16.
See, I disagree.
No, 22.
I think if he wants it, he's going to have to go out and get it.
Right, but he can go out and get it by putting up 22, 19, and 16. That's what I'm saying. It feels like your question is asking me, does he have to go start scoring 40?
No. Not that, but you can tell there would maybe a sense of urgency that you can see within his play.
I feel like he's always urgent. I mean, I feel like the non-urgent Jokic was a narrative when he was
his personality type alone doesn't scream urgency.
Did you watch his reaction when he hit the buzzer beater in Golden State?
Yes, but that's the first time he's been like that, and I love it about him because it's the first time he's really actually celebrated on something he did. Normally, if he's acting like that, it's because Jamal hit a shot or AG did something great or MPJ blocked a shot. When it's him doing it, it's always ho-hum, right? And this is what I was talking about last night. With the NBA fan and the NBA perception, they love that, like, look at me thing. And it'll never be Jokic, but is there a way that he has to change to go out and actually take it from Embiid in the final, couple months before we get to the postseason?
Well, I think two things. First of all, I think getting the 1 seed would be huge because they got it last year, and if they get it again this year, I don't think you can ignore that. And then 2, you want him to be more demonstrative. Is that what you're getting at?
I don't even know if that's it, but you know, sense of urgency is all I can say because I don't want him to change his personality.
Okay.
But if there's an opportunity to take over a game, then take it over.
He can stand up for himself a little bit, if that makes sense. So this is the second thing he can do. We played the sound last night when Nathan McKinnon told reporters the other night, yeah, I heard the MVP chants, but they don't matter because I've never won the award. He was sending a message to the writers and to the voters of, hey, how have you never given this
Read
to me?
between the lines.
I think if Jokic has a huge game tomorrow and the Nuggets win, even if he gets up there and he's his goofy, fun-loving, friendly self, an hour and a half late to the press conference because he's doing whatever, taking the microphone off, being Jokic, even if he just has an answer in there that says something of like, yeah, this meant a lot to me.
There you go. You go.
This guy got me last time. I wanted to get him today, and we had to protect our home court.
Dude,
1 or 2 sentences.
Look at his stat line for the last, freaking 90 days? The amount of shots he's taken, his shooting percentage alone, and it's not all just, he's not just dunking it or easy lay-ins.
He doesn't miss.
He does everything. And look at his shooting percentage. Look at his, that's why I'm asking you, does he need to do something different? Because even after this historic, last month and a half that he's played, he's still trailing.
Yeah, stand up for himself a little bit tomorrow.
All right.
Have a viral line, right?
Yeah.
When is parade? No, I have to go home.
Yeah.
And then I bleep and love parade.
Yeah.
Do something like that catches the attention of the NBA world, and he'll be just fine. All right, we can't wait for Jokic and Embiid tomorrow at Ball Arena. Again, Joel Embiid's not on the injury report. The last time he played in Denver, 2019, the place was called Pepsi Center. The Avs had not won a title since 2001. The Nuggets had never won a title. And the Broncos QB was...
I was just going to ask you.
Case Keenum? Maybe? One of Joe Flacco. They all blend together.
Yeah.